Hey everyone, Anthony Scott here of ToyHypeUSA.com. Today we are reviewing the 21st box to FanHome's Build Your Own R2-D2 subscription box, which includes issues 79 through 82. Each of these magazines come with parts to continue on with the build. Special shout out and thank you to FanHome for sending along for review. It's greatly appreciated. To subscribe, check off the link right in the YouTube description or the hyperlinks off of ToyHypeUSA.com. Here's a closer look at issue 79, as well as the parts we're going to be using for the build. Inside this issue, body frame fittings. That's for building R2-D2. Inside Star Wars, getting technical. And for Droid directory, droids are in Yavin 4. First article, getting technical, along with some great images. A continuation. You'll notice that he's holding the head of Jar Jar Binks. Next up, for Droid directory, we have droids of Yavin 4. A continuation. Chopper is featured on here. And for robotics, we have Telerobotics. A continuation. And here's a look at the build. Here's a look at the breakdown of all the parts on the left. And on the right, you have the steps. These are all the parts here. We get more bags of screws. And here's a look at the steps. Connecting that as shown. And completed assembly. So I'm going to work on this now, and let's take a closer look. Here's a look at the completed assembly. This part of the framework is now complete. This is in nice and secure, as in this piece right here that's sticking up. And I am now moving on to the next issue. Here's a look at the cover of issue number 80, as well as the parts we're going to be using for the build. Inside issue 80, building R2-D2, adding the front body and panel and details. Inside Star Wars, bring in the cast. And for Droid directory, we have R2-D2 Astromech Part 3. First up, bring on the cast. And a continuation. R2-D2 Astromech Part 3 is for Droid directory. And we have article for robotics, construction robotics. A continuation on the left. And on the right, we have a breakdown of the parts for assembly. Here is a closer look at that. A lot of parts here. And the next step, we're going to be adding the front details. Here is a closer look at that. Make sure to read carefully. And completed assembly, which you see here. And now fitting the switchboard, which is the next step. Here is a closer look at that. Once again, take your time with it. The control buttons and completed assembly. So this is what it's going to look like when it's done. I'm going to assemble this now, and let's take a closer look. Here's a look at the final assembly. All these details on the side are in place, screwed in, and these are buttons you can click. Here is a look at the back. The switchboard is also installed. This piece, this wire, I'm going to say, is just loose fitting like that. And I am now moving on to the next issue. Here's a closer look at issue 81, as well as the parts we're going to be using for assembly. And for building R2-D2, we have assembling the top ring. Inside Star Wars, we have computer generation, which you see Jar Jar Binks right there on the front. And for Droid Directory, we have R2-D2 Astromech Part 4. Kicking things off, computer generation, Jar Jar Binks, a continuation, how they did the droid army. Next article, R2-D2 Astromech Part 4. A continuation. For robotics, we have digital mapping. A continuation. And now we are assembling the body frames. So here's a breakdown of the accessories as well as the steps. These 3 frames and these 2 ring connectors. Assembling the top ring. And completed assembly. So I'm going to assemble this right now, and let's take a closer look. Here's a look at completed assembly. This part of the body frame is now complete, screwed in, as you can see here. And I am now moving on to the next issue. And finally, here's a look at issue 82, the final issue in this box. Here's a look at the parts we're going to be using for assembly. Inside, building R2-D2, assembling the front body details and sensors. Inside Star Wars, planning a lightsaber battle, Part 1. And for Droid Directory, we have R2-D2 Astromech Part 5. First article, planning a lightsaber battle, Part 1, from the Phantom Menace. A continuation. Next up, R2-D2 Astromech Part 5. And finally, we have front body details and sensors. These are the parts we're going to be using. All these screws as well. A lot of screws in this one. Here's a closer look at all the parts. So take your time in assembling tool components. Next page. Completed assembly. This is what it's going to look like. We've done one of these once before. And now fitting the tool components. A continuation. And completed assembly. So once all this is done, we're going to be adding these 2 components, as you see there. Next up, installing the sensor. And the last page. testing the ultrasonic sensor. And installing it in, and completed assembly. So I'm going to do this now, and let's take a closer look. Here's a look at completed assembly. All these details are on here. These two doors open up, revealing compartments on the inside. And here's a look at the back. On the back, you have the sensors with the wires sticking out. So overall, this is a phenomenal offering. The details are like none other. Special shout out and thank you to FanHome for sending along for a review. We greatly appreciate that. To subscribe, click off the link in the YouTube description or off of toyhypeusa.com. There's a hyperlink there. My recommendation would be to subscribe. Thanks for watching this video. We have more reviews coming. I am Anthony Scott at toyhypeusa.com, and stay tuned for more.